Stop right there. This is the moment you've been waiting for. You've felt it, haven't you? That quiet, burning conviction in your soul, the one that told you, even when no one else believed, that you were destined for greatness. The world couldn't see it then, but now God is revealing your brilliance, and those who once doubted you are now filled with regret. Chosen one, they thought your silence meant weakness. They laughed at your ideas, scoffed at your dreams, and tried to write you off as too deep or too different. But what they didn't know was that while they were busy judging you, you were building something they couldn't even fathom. The quiet ones are often the visionaries, the ones who see the bigger picture, who connect the dots others miss. And now, your genius has been unveiled. Now, the very people who dismissed you are the ones scrambling to catch up. The same ones who rolled their eyes at your vision are now reposting words that sound eerily familiar to the ones you shared with them long ago. The irony is undeniable. And while they're rewriting history, you're standing tall in your truth, knowing that God's timing was always perfect. You were never different. You were just decades ahead. To everyone in this community, thank you. Your journey of isolation, of being misunderstood, was not in vain. It was preparation. God was refining you for this moment, and now the whole town is watching in awe as the one they doubted steps into their divine purpose. If this message resonates with you, drop 777 inches, the comments, as your declaration of alignment. Let the universe know you're ready for the full reveal of your genius. Follow this channel for more divine insights, and if you feel led, send us super thanks to help us spread this powerful energy to others who need to hear it. Now, are you ready to see the full circle of your divine elevation? God's chosen one, the town now sees your genius, and they're filled with regret. Number 1, they mocked what they couldn't measure. They mocked what they couldn't measure. That's the story of your life, summed up in one brutally accurate sentence. The world didn't know what to do with you. They saw your quiet presence, your calm demeanor, and they didn't understand it, so they labeled it as something less than what it truly was. They couldn't measure your depth, so they reduced you to something simple, something they could comprehend. In their eyes, you were strange, slow, lost, because you didn't follow their script, you didn't rush to speak, you didn't run with the crowd. But what they couldn't see was that your silence wasn't confusion, it was calibration. While they were busy impressing each other, you were calibrating your energy, reading the room, not by the words they spoke, but by the energy they carried. While they rushed to impress, you took the time to understand what made people tick. You studied patterns, not just people. You understood motives, not just words. You saw the whole game unfolding while they were still busy, thinking they were playing. People fear what they can't categorize. They want things to fit into neat little boxes, to label, judge, and dismiss things they don't understand. The truth you carried couldn't be boxed, couldn't be labeled, and that's what terrified them. Because they couldn't define you, they dismissed you. They couldn't see your genius because they were too busy trying to impress each other with shallow accolades. You didn't fit into their small-scale understanding of success. They didn't understand why you weren't rushing for validation, why you didn't seek applause. What they missed was that your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. While they fought for shallow approval, you were aligning with divine timing, understanding things on a much deeper level. The Bible speaks of this wisdom in Proverbs 2:6. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Your wisdom wasn't something that could be measured by the world's standards. It wasn't academic. It wasn't wrapped in credentials, money, or fame. Your intelligence was experiential. It came from decoding pain, studying human nature, and seeing through the masks people wear to survive. You were always in tune with the deeper layers of life. You noticed things no one else did, patterns in human behavior, details in the way people interacted, things that the superficial world couldn't comprehend. They didn't understand this. They couldn't see your depth, so they made judgments based on their limited understanding. But your mind was never built for shallow applause. You were built to dismantle illusions. You were never meant to fit into their rhythm, to be part of the world that required validation to feel alive. You were designed to function on divine timing, a rhythm that only becomes apparent to those who step outside the noise of the world and tune into something greater. You weren't meant for their world of superficial recognition. You were destined for deeper truth. And they only recognized brilliance when it came with credentials, money, or fame. But your brilliance wasn't measured in accolades or external achievements. It was measured in something deeper. It was the kind of genius that comes from understanding pain, from knowing what it means to survive when the world expects you to fail. It came from the wisdom of seeing beyond the surface, seeing through the masks people wear. It came from the quiet moments when you understood more than anyone else could even begin to grasp. You connected dots that didn't seem to belong together, and this terrified them. This is the kind of genius that can't be measured by grades or job titles, the kind that forces others to confront how little they truly understand. It forces them to face the reality that their system of measuring success doesn't work when they come across someone like you. They could see the external achievements, the world's definitions of success, but they didn't see the depth of what you were doing, the quiet strength you were building, the wisdom you were gathering. And now, as your truth unfolds, they're standing there in silent embarrassment. In Luke 6:21, "Blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be satisfied." The hunger you felt, the hunger for truth, for deeper understanding, for real meaning, has now been satisfied, and the world can no longer deny your wisdom. The same people who laughed at your dreams, who mocked you, who doubted you, now find themselves quoting your wisdom, acting as though they discovered it themselves. Their laughter has turned to awkward silence, and that silence speaks volumes. Their mockery has faded into nothingness, and all that's left is their quiet acknowledgement that they were wrong. You see, they didn't just underestimate you, they miscalculated your depth. You were never behind. You were simply waiting for the right time, waiting for awareness to catch up with you. While they rushed ahead with shallow pursuits, you were gathering the wisdom of the universe, stepping into your divine timing. You were always ahead in ways they couldn't comprehend. And now, as you continue to rise, they are the ones left behind, watching as you become the person they could never understand. Their regrets, their doubts, their fears have no place in your journey anymore. And the truth is, you never changed. Awareness caught up. They mocked you because they couldn't measure you. They couldn't define you by their limited standards, so they assumed you were nothing. But you were always more. You were always meant for greatness. And now that greatness is unfolding before their eyes, their regret is their own, but you are the one who gets to live out the truth of who you always were. You were never meant to be measured by their standards, chosen one. You were meant to define your own path. And now that they can see it, it's too late for them to rewrite the story. Your life is the proof they can no longer deny, the evidence of everything they tried to dismiss. And the most beautiful part is that you never needed them to see it. You've always known your worth, your power, your truth. Now, it's their turn to see it too. So, what will you do now? Will you let their regret define you, or will you continue to rise? The world is watching, but you are no longer waiting for its approval. You are walking in your divine purpose, and there is no force that can stop you. The town, the world, they see you now, but you are no longer playing by their rules. You are playing by the rules of the universe, by divine timing, and there is no greater power than that. In 1 John 4:4, you, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. You have overcome the mockery, the doubt, and the judgment of others. You've always been greater, and now the world has no choice but to see it. Rise, chosen one. You were never behind. The world's eyes are opening, and your truth is becoming undeniable. Number 2, your genius didn't come wrapped in a degree. It came wrapped in pain. While everyone else was being celebrated for their awards and achievements, you were weathering storms that most people couldn't even imagine. Your education didn't come from classrooms or certificates hanging on the wall. It came from betrayal, from loneliness, and from the kind of heartbreak that only life can teach, the kind of heartbreak that forges wisdom no textbook can ever hold. Have you ever wondered how much of your strength was born from the struggles you faced? The world didn't see the brilliance that grew from your struggle because they were too busy looking for success in places that only rewarded outward appearances. They saw you as broken, lost, or even weak because you didn't wear your success like a badge. What they didn't understand is that your genius was born in the trenches of adversity, and while they sought comfort, you found wisdom in every painful step. Your mind expanded every time life pushed you to your breaking point. You learned to think beyond survival, to question everything around you, and to see meaning in places where others could only see misery. That is the kind of brilliance that can't be taught. It is earned through endurance, through the kind of resilience that only emerges after enduring the hardest of trials. While others had mentors and textbooks, you had long, lonely nights with your thoughts, turning them into lessons. You didn't have the luxury of comfort. Pain was your curriculum, and resilience was your degree. In a world that rewards external validation, you were quietly creating the foundation of your own greatness, a greatness forged not through accolades, but through raw, lived experience. In 2 Corinthians 12-9, Paul writes, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me.' Your pain was never your weakness, it was the gateway to your strength. The storms you faced didn't break you, they shaped you. You became your own teacher, learning in ways that others couldn't begin to comprehend. Where they saw failure, you saw the beginning of wisdom. The irony is the same people who laughed at your struggles are now quoting you for inspiration. They don't realize that what they admire in you today was forged in the moments you'd never wish on anyone. You didn't study philosophy, you lived it. You didn't learn psychology, you survived manipulation and learned human nature firsthand. You learned to navigate life's hardest lessons without the textbooks they relied on, and now they see you as a source of wisdom, not understanding the depth from which it sprang. In Proverbs 4-7 it says, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom, though it cost all you have, get understanding." You had to pay a price to get the wisdom you now carry. And that price was your experiences, the pain that refined you, the losses that deepened you, and the wounds that taught you how to heal and grow. Your wisdom is not borrowed. It is authentic, it is yours, and it comes from a place that no superficial measure of intelligence can reach. That's why your understanding runs deeper than theory. It's rooted in lived truth, not just something you read about, but something you felt, survived, and grew from. Society has a strange way of rewarding surface knowledge, while ignoring the spiritual intelligence that comes from facing darkness and rising stronger. They value the mind that memorizes facts, not the one that transforms pain into purpose, suffering into strength. What is the meaning of your suffering? How have the trials you've endured shaped your understanding of the world? How can you transform every hardship into a stepping stone toward your divine purpose? Your genius doesn't fit into systems, it breaks them. You think differently because you felt differently. You don't just know things, you understand them, and that understanding comes from the deepest places of your being. It comes from empathy, from discernment, from the scars that rewired your perception of the world. You see things they cannot see because you've been places they've never been. Your pain reshaped your mind, your thoughts, your purpose. Now, you're able to speak wisdom from a place of profound awareness. In James 1-5 we are told, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." Your wisdom was a gift, not just given from the heavens, but born from the challenges you've endured. You learned to lean into the divine, to trust that even in your pain there was a purpose. And that purpose has now manifested as a strength and understanding that cannot be shaken. Now, as they see your light, they're confused. They don't understand where it came from. They still think that brilliance must come with a title, with credentials, with authority. But your crown wasn't carved out of a degree or job title. It was carved out of adversity, not authority, but survival. You don't need a diploma to show your worth. Your worth is proven by your survival, by your ability to rise again and again, by the lessons you've learned. That's what sets you apart. You didn't just go through pain, you mined it for meaning. You transformed it into purpose, and that's why your wisdom hits differently. It's not borrowed, it's birthed from the deepest parts of you. As Romans 5:3-4 tells us, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Your character was forged in the fire of life, and the wisdom you carry is a reflection of your endurance. It's a wisdom that cannot be taken from you, because it's not something that can be measured by the standards of the world. It's unshakable. It is rooted in your soul. Your genius came through fire, not fortune, and that's why it's unshakable. The storms you survived, the challenges you overcame, these were the tests that shaped you into who you are today. You weren't built for easy. You were built for greatness, and that greatness was made in the crucible of adversity. Now, as the world sees your light, they stand in awe, but they still don't understand. They can't measure your brilliance, because your brilliance comes from places they can't even begin to comprehend. But you don't need their validation. You are the proof that wisdom doesn't come from external accolades or titles. It comes from the depth of experience, from facing the storms and using them to grow stronger. That is your genius. And that is your legacy. What will you do with this newfound understanding? Will you allow the world's failure to see your worth define you, or will you stand firm in the truth of who you've always been? The choice is yours. Number 3. They were comfortable only when you were predictable. The moment you stopped acting how they expected, their comfort turned into confusion. They liked you better when you stayed small. They didn't know how to handle someone who didn't conform to their expectations, who didn't play by their unspoken rules that kept them feeling superior. You were easier to manage when you blended in, when your brilliance was dimmed enough to make them feel safe. But the second you stepped into your full self, when your thinking started to challenge their limits, everything changed. They didn't know what to do with you. Have you ever felt that shift? The moment you realized that the version of yourself you were offering wasn't the real you. The moment you stopped pretending to be what they expected, when you finally embraced your true essence. That's when things started to unravel for them. They didn't know what to do with someone who refused to be defined by their assumptions. So, what did they do? They labeled you. They called you arrogant, rebellious, or strange, not because you actually changed, but because your growth disrupted the false order they depended on. They didn't want to see you evolve, because your evolution exposed their stagnation. Your expansion illuminated how small their world truly was, and that scared them. They had lived in a world where they could control the narrative, where they could shape your identity to fit their limited view of who you were. But when you grew beyond that, they couldn't keep up. And when people are confronted with something they can't control, they try to diminish it. In Mark 6:4, Jesus said, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home." Your greatness has always been too much for those who were too comfortable with the old version of you. They couldn't fathom the depth of your transformation because it exposed their own lack of growth. The moment you stopped explaining yourself and started expressing yourself, they panicked. Their power over you depended on your predictability. When you stopped reacting the way they expected, they lost control. And that's when the gossip started. That's when the rumors began. People always try to assassinate what they can't anticipate, don't they? They said you were acting different, but what they really meant was you stopped playing their script. You stopped apologizing for your wisdom. You stopped seeking approval from people who never truly understood you in the first place. They were uncomfortable, not because you changed too fast, but because your evolution revealed their own stagnation. When you outgrew the version of yourself they could manipulate, they realized they couldn't keep up mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, and that hurt them. But the truth is, you were never meant to be controlled. You were born to be transformative. The more you evolved, the more you revealed just how deeply they had been trapped in their own comfort zone. They had relied on you being predictable, but your unpredictability became your shield. The more you stepped into your power, the more they tried to pull you back into their comfort zone, but you refused to fit into the box they had placed you in, and that terrified them. As it is written in Isaiah 55:8, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." Your journey has always been guided by a higher purpose, one that they couldn't see, and now that your growth has shifted their perception, they don't know how to handle it. They can't predict you anymore, and that's when they started to doubt their own judgment. Your unpredictability turned out to be your protection. You stopped being their puppet, and you became your own person. Think about it. How often did you hold back your true self to avoid ruffling feathers? How many times did you dim your light so others could feel comfortable? The moment you stopped doing that, your freedom began. Your freedom began the moment you stopped being predictable to anyone but God. That's when your power started to unfold, and nothing in this world could take that away from you. Your unpredictability was the greatest gift you could give yourself. It was the shield that protected your essence, the shield that kept you from being manipulated, from being molded into a version of yourself that no longer aligned with your higher calling. The world didn't want you to evolve because they couldn't control that evolution, but that's what made you unshakable. Your unpredictability is a reflection of your divine timing, a timing that doesn't fit into anyone else's narrative but God's. Now, the very same people who tried to mold you into their vision of who you should be, the ones who mocked your unpredictability, are now looking at you in awe. They're confused by your success because they never expected you to be the one who broke free. But now, as they witness your rise, they're filled with a mixture of admiration and regret. The version of you they thought they could control is gone, and now they see the true power that was always within you. In Romans 8:28, it says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." You've always been called to something greater. You were never meant to be predictable, to fit into their small box. You were meant to challenge their assumptions, to break free from their limitations, and to rise above their expectations. And now that you've done that, they must reckon with their own stagnation. They thought they had the power to shape your future, but the truth is, you were always the one creating your own path. Their discomfort with your unpredictability is just a reflection of their fear. Fear that they can no longer control you. And that fear is your strength. You've stepped into your purpose, into your divine power, and nothing they say or think can ever take that away. Your unpredictability is your crown, and it has been carved not from the expectations of the world, but from the authenticity and power of your true self. Now that they see your light, they want to be part of your journey. But it's too late for them to rewrite their story. You have already stepped into your power, and their approval is no longer necessary. Your freedom, your unpredictability, and your divine purpose are what will continue to drive you forward. Number 4. The same mouths that dismissed you are now rehearsing your language. The irony couldn't be more divine. These were the same people who once rolled their eyes at your way of thinking, who laughed when you tried to express deeper truths, who told you to stop overanalyzing or come back to reality. They couldn't comprehend your vision then, so they mocked it. They saw your insights as nonsense, your passions as unnecessary drama, and your clarity as naive idealism. Have you ever noticed the change? The same people who rejected your thoughts, your perspectives, and your wisdom now find themselves speaking your words. They repeat your ideas as if they've discovered them for the first time, as if they are now the ones who are enlightened. They post your mindset on their social media, share your affirmations, and quote your words as though they are the ones who invented them. The very truths they once dismissed now seem like daily affirmations for them. But what they don't realize is that what they are doing is not respect, it's regret, disguised as admiration. They couldn't understand you then, but now they see that you were ahead of them. You were living in truth while they were living for image. Their admiration is a veil over the humiliation they feel because time has proven you right. In Proverbs 15:31, it is written, "The ear that listens to life-giving rebukes will dwell among the wise." You were the one offering life-giving wisdom, but they could not hear it at the time. They needed you to stay small so their fragile logic could feel large. But now that your truth has unfolded, they are left speechless, or rather, they are echoing your very words. They aren't quoting you because they finally get it. They are quoting you because time has shown them that you were right all along. You were never speaking nonsense. You were speaking prophecy in plain language. The wisdom you shared was not about sounding wise. It was about surviving with awareness, about seeing the truth beneath the surface while they were stuck in the illusion of what was easy and comfortable. You were living in truth while they were living for image, and they couldn't comprehend that. Your insights made them uncomfortable because they exposed the shallowness of their understanding. They could only label you as negative because your perception challenged the way they viewed reality. In Luke 6:26 it says, "Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you, for that is how their ancestors treated the false prophets." You were never meant to fit into their world of shallow validation. You were chosen to speak truths that would shake up the status quo, truths that would challenge not just their perceptions of you, but their understanding of the world. You were meant to be a messenger of divine insight, even if that meant being rejected by those who couldn't yet see the bigger picture. The truth is, they were never comfortable with your growth, not because it wasn't valid, but because it threatened their own smallness. They needed you to stay small so they could feel superior. They needed you to play by their rules, to fit into their worldview that didn't leave room for the depth and wisdom that you carry. But now that your truth has unfolded, now that you have stepped into the fullness of your potential, they can't deny it anymore. Your truth is undeniable, and as they quote your words, they know they're speaking the truth you've always carried, and that is what stings the most. The reality is, they were never rejecting you. They were rejecting the divine intelligence you were carrying. The truths you spoke were not arrogance, they were anointing. What they dismissed as strange or unrealistic was actually the deep wisdom that God had placed within you. And now that they've mimicked your language, every time they repeat your words, heaven smiles, because what they once mocked has now become their salvation. In Jeremiah 1-9, God says, "Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth." These words, the ones they dismissed, the ones they ridiculed, were always God's words, not yours. You were merely the vessel through which these truths flowed. You spoke not for applause, but because it was your divine calling. Now, they are the ones echoing what you once spoke, but their echoing is their confession that you saw the truth before they did. Their genuine regret lies in the fact that they now see the wisdom they dismissed was always divine. Your words weren't just lessons, they were prophecies, and time has validated them. Now they are forced to quote your wisdom because, deep down, they know that you were right. They know that they dismissed you based on their own limited understanding, and they feel humiliated by that realization. They are no longer your critics, they are your followers, even if they don't fully realize the depth of the change they've undergone. In Matthew 10:27, Jesus says, "What I tell you in the dark, speak in the light. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the rooftops." Your wisdom was never meant to be hidden, it was meant to be proclaimed boldly, even if it meant facing rejection and misunderstanding. Now that they see the light, they have no choice but to acknowledge the truth you've always known, the truth they once tried to silence. You are no longer hidden in the shadows of doubt and fear. Your brilliance has emerged into the light, and now they are the ones scrambling to catch up. They are quoting your wisdom, not because they understand it fully, but because they are now realizing they were wrong. And in that realization, they are beginning to see that what they once mocked wasn't arrogance, it was anointing. Your voice was never meant to fit into their small world. It was meant to shatter their limitations and challenge them to rise. And now, as they repeat your words, they are acknowledging the divinity in your message, even if they can't yet fully accept the depth of it. They once rejected you, but now they must listen to you, because you were always meant to speak the truth they could never deny. Number 5, you didn't need validation, they needed correction. For years, they thought their opinions mattered, that their judgment could define your worth. They assumed that if they dismissed you, you would shrink to fit their narrative, that you would conform to their expectations, become small enough to fit into the mold they had built for you. They didn't understand the truth. Your worth was never subject to their approval. It was self-sustaining, growing stronger and clearer with every passing moment, unfolding on its own timeline. Have you ever realized that you were never meant to fit into their narrative? You were never meant to seek validation from those who couldn't see your value, those who only saw you as a reflection of their own limited understanding. The world around you thought that if they ignored you long enough, you would fade. But they didn't realize that you didn't need them to validate your existence. Your truth didn't rely on their applause, and because it didn't, it only grew more powerful with time. While they scrambled to keep up, your insight deepened, and your clarity became undeniable. Validation was never part of your equation. In Romans 8:30, it is written, "And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified." You were predestined for this path, chosen long before anyone could understand your purpose. And while they fought to control you with their judgments, you stood firm in the certainty of your own truth. Your insight became your strength, and time only proved that you didn't need them to believe in you. You just needed to keep moving forward in faith. The truth you spoke years ago, the insights they dismissed as naive or foolish, finally showed their strength. When your words began to unfold and the world had to face the reality you always saw, it hit them like a mirror, reflecting the truths they had refused to see in themselves. They couldn't handle it, could they? Their arrogance turned to shame as they realized that the wisdom you shared was never nonsense, it was always truth. What they mocked as rebellion, what they labeled as exaggeration, was actually precision, the kind of precision that only comes from seeing the world, not through a narrow lens, but through the eyes of someone who has learned to read between the lines. You were not out of control, not rebellious, but simply ahead of them, and their inability to see that became their downfall. In Isaiah 55:9, God says, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Your clarity came from a higher place. Your wisdom was not of this world. You saw what others could not, and because they couldn't understand your vision, they rejected you. But now, they are left to grapple with the truth they once dismissed. Their confusion, their pride, and their fear of being revealed for what they truly were made them reject you. They weren't ready to handle a mind that didn't conform to the world's logic, a mind that saw through the illusions they had built for themselves. And now, they replay your old moments again and again, trying to reconstruct how they missed what was so obvious all along. They replay your words, every conversation, every subtle insight you shared years ago. And every time they do, they feel the sting of their rejection, because deep down, they know you were right all along. Have you ever wondered how often the world rejects brilliance simply because it doesn't fit their narrative? How many times have your words been dismissed, only to be quoted later by the very people who once doubted you? That is the power of truth. It doesn't fade because of rejection. It remains, and it grows stronger with time, until the world is forced to acknowledge it. In Matthew 13:57, it says, "And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, A prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home. Your wisdom has always been a prophetic gift, and it was rejected by those who were closest to you. But now they see it, and it hurts them because they realize they didn't understand you. They didn't understand the divine intelligence that flowed through you, and that ignorance has been their greatest mistake. You never needed them to change their minds or to admit their wrongs. Your life, your clarity, and your resilience have already done that for you. You didn't need their validation because your worth has always been self-defined, rooted in the truth that you carry. And the beauty of this is that they can't undo it now. Every word they now quote is an acknowledgement of your wisdom, a quiet confession that they saw the truth before they did. And that is what stings the most. Not the fact that you were right, but the fact that they once tried to silence you. What they once dismissed as arrogance was anointing, and now they are forced to recognize that they never understood the depth of the gift you carried. Your words have aged like prophecy, becoming more and more undeniable with time. What they once rejected has turned into their correction, and the pain of their own shame is the soundtrack to their realization. In 1 Corinthians 1:27, it is written, "But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong." Your wisdom was never meant to conform to their standards. It was always meant to challenge them, to shatter the illusions they had built around themselves. And now, as they finally absorb the truth they once dismissed, their shame is the soundtrack of correction, a correction they needed but couldn't face until you proved them wrong without even trying. Your clarity, your truth, and your strength have already spoken for you. And now that they are left to reckon with it, your validation was never theirs to give. It was always yours to carry, and they are learning that now, one word at a time. Number 6. Your mind operated on a frequency they weren't spiritually tuned to hear. You were picking up signals their spirits weren't advanced enough to process. While they were focused on appearances, gossip, and quick conclusions, you were decoding energy, motives, and patterns that went far beyond the surface. You weren't trying to sound deep. You weren't trying to impress anyone with your words. You were simply speaking from a place they hadn't yet reached. Have you ever realized that your awareness was always ahead of the world's understanding? While they were caught up in the trivialities, you were receiving messages that came from a deeper plane, a place of spiritual sensitivity that they couldn't even begin to comprehend. Your insights weren't born from intellect alone, they were born from spiritual intelligence, the kind of wisdom that doesn't rely on logic, but on discernment. This was the frequency they couldn't tune into. They heard the words, but they missed the message. They were too caught up in their egos to process what you were saying, because their egos were louder than their spirits. Your tone, your message, all of it felt invasive to them. They couldn't handle your transmission, so they judged it, dismissed it, and called it foolishness. They couldn't understand the source of your wisdom, and because they couldn't, they rejected it. In Isaiah 55:9, it says, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." You were tapping into a frequency higher than theirs, a frequency of divine discernment. And because they couldn't grasp it, they thought you were crazy, offbeat, or eccentric. What they didn't understand was that your insight wasn't criticism, it was clarity. You were warning them, guiding them, and revealing what was unseen to their eyes. But all they saw was a threat. They felt uncomfortable because your perception pierced through their masks they thought were impenetrable. You weren't judging. You were discerning, seeing things they couldn't, because your spiritual frequency allowed you to tap into things beyond the physical world. You were perceiving what was already forming, while they were still stuck in their superficial analysis of the world around them. In 1 Corinthians 2:14, it says, "The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness, and cannot understand them, because they are discerned only through the Spirit." your words, your insights, your warnings, they were all discerned through the Spirit. But they couldn't understand them because they were spiritually out of range. Their egos were clouding their ability to hear what you were saying, and as a result, they dismissed you as crazy. How many times did you speak the truth, only to be dismissed as a dreamer or a fool? How often did your warnings fall on deaf ears, only to see them unfold later, exactly as you predicted? How many times did you speak of a future they couldn't see? And now time has proven you right. The things you sensed before anyone else are now happening one by one. The people you warned others about are now showing their true nature, and the shifts you spoke of are now visible in plain sight. It's like they can't run from the reality that you always saw, the one they refused to acknowledge when you tried to explain it. They don't know whether to apologize or stay silent. Most of them will do neither. They'll just pretend that they always knew what was coming. But the truth is, they didn't know, and they're haunted by the fact that you did. In Proverbs 4-7, it says, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom, though it cost all you have, get understanding." The wisdom you spoke came at a cost, didn't it? It came at the cost of being misunderstood, of being labeled, of standing alone. And yet, the wisdom that they once rejected is now the wisdom they are trying to grasp, because it has stood the test of time. You were never offbeat, they were just out of range. Your frequency, the one they couldn't tune into, the one they thought was foreign or strange, has now become undeniable. Your insights weren't just inspired, they were prophetic. You saw the world for what it was, not through the lens of their limited perspective, but through a broader, divine vision. Now that your wavelength has proven real, they can't unhear what they once ignored. What once sounded strange to them now resonates as truth. What once made them uncomfortable now makes perfect sense. Your voice, your frequency, your insights, they were always meant to be heard. They were just too late to understand them. And now they are left scrambling to catch up. In Hebrews 4:12, it says, "For the word of God is alive and active. Sharper than any double-edged sword, it penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." Your truth has always been alive and active, sharper than anything they could have imagined. Your words, your insights, your understanding, they cut through the noise and reached deeper places. And now, as they hear it, they can no longer deny it. They can no longer ignore the wisdom that has always been in you. The frequency you operated on has now become undeniable. You were never speaking nonsense. You were speaking from a higher place, from a place of spiritual clarity and discernment. And now, as time reveals the depth of what you saw, they are left to confront the fact that your truth was always more than just a feeling or a hunch. It was divine insight. In James 1-5 it is written, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." You didn't just guess at the truth, you received it, and now those who once ignored you are finally seeing the divine wisdom you carried all along. You were never wrong. You were simply ahead of your time. Number 7, they thought isolation would break you. It built your brilliance. When they pushed you out, when they excluded you from the circles they controlled, they thought they were cutting off your power. They believed that by isolating you, they could silence your voice, dim your confidence, and make you doubt yourself. What they didn't realize is that solitude is sacred ground for a chosen one. You didn't crumble in the quiet. Instead, you evolved in it. Do you remember the moment you found peace in isolation? When you finally stopped seeking others' approval, when you learned to sit with your thoughts and let them grow into powerful insights. They thought isolation would leave you desperate for connection, desperate for validation, but instead you discovered your own company. You learned that in the silence you were never alone. You were never abandoned. You were being prepared for something far greater. In Psalm 46:10, God says, "Be still and know that I am God." The stillness was never meant to break you. It was meant to align you with God's divine purpose. They thought their abandonment would weaken you, but it became your source of strength. Every moment of being overlooked, every season of being misunderstood, became your training ground. These were the moments that built the kind of strength that doesn't need an audience to be real. In the silence, you became something greater than they could ever have imagined. While they were busy trying to erase your name, you were busy rewriting your destiny. They underestimated the power of your solitude, thinking it would make you desperate for validation. But instead, you found a peace that was beyond the noise, a clarity that no outside influence could touch. While they were waiting for you to shrink, you were expanding, evolving, becoming who you were always meant to be. The isolation they tried to impose on you became the very soil in which your brilliance took root. What they didn't realize is that your solitude wasn't your punishment, it was your preparation. The silence wasn't meant to erase you, it was meant to fine-tune you. They thought silence would drive you crazy, but all it did was sharpen your mind. It became your weapon against illusion, your shield from distractions. In the quiet, you began to see through everything, the fake support, the masked intentions, and the small-minded chatter. While they were wasting their energy trying to make you invisible, you were learning how to see what they couldn't. In Isaiah 40-31, it says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Your strength was being renewed in that stillness, in the silence where God could speak to you without interruption. You weren't being left behind. You were being prepared for a higher purpose. You were soaring in a way they couldn't even comprehend. God used what was meant to destroy you as preparation. The silence they gave you wasn't a punishment, it was divine programming. That's where the download happened, where your spirit aligned with divine instruction. While they were talking, gossiping, and trying to diminish you, you were transforming. You were growing, not just in your mind, but in your spirit. You were becoming the person you were always meant to be, and they didn't even see it coming. They thought their rejection would make you fade, but instead, it forced you to evolve. Their silence became your shield, protecting you from the noise and distractions that would have pulled you off your divine path. While they were trying to keep you invisible, you were upgrading your mind, your spirit, your understanding were being elevated to a new level. By the time you reappeared, you weren't the same person they had left behind. You weren't the same version of yourself who once sought their approval. You were now a force to be reckoned with, a chosen one, whose clarity and vision couldn't be denied. What they didn't understand is that you weren't just surviving isolation, you were being built in it. Every moment in the silence, every time you thought you were alone, God was working in you, shaping you into someone who could stand on their own, someone who didn't need validation from the people who never understood your true power. Your brilliance didn't come from external applause, it came from internal transformation, from the wisdom you gained in solitude. In 1 Kings 19:11-1-2, God said to Elijah, "The Lord said, 'Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by.' Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper." God's voice is often found in the stillness, in the silence between the storms, in the moments when the world expects you to break, but instead you grow stronger. In your solitude, you found the strength to rise. You were being refined, made pure, like gold in the fire. You were never meant to fit in with their expectations. You were born to transform the world, not by following their script, but by writing your own. And sometimes, the only place you can hear the whispers of divine wisdom is in solitude. You didn't need them to define you. You needed them to leave so you could finally hear God's voice clearly. Your brilliance didn't fade in isolation. It flourished. And now, as you re-enter the world, you're not just coming back to the same life. You're stepping into a new reality, one where you are fully aligned with your divine purpose. You were being built in the silence, and now you walk into the world with clarity, strength, and an understanding that no one can take from you. You were never buried, you were being built. And now that they see you standing tall, they will understand that the silence they imposed was never meant to break you. It was meant to refine you. Number 8. They measured you by popularity instead of prophecy. They were so conditioned to believe that truth only matters when it's trending that they couldn't see the power in your quiet influence. The world has trained people to trust the crowd, not the calling. If something doesn't come with followers, fame, or noise, people assume it has no value. That's why they overlooked you. Not because you lacked substance, but because your message wasn't wrapped in spectacle. They wanted numbers before they would believe in your mind. They wanted validation from the majority before giving credit to your vision. Have you ever felt dismissed because you didn't fit into the conventional mold of what success looks like? You weren't part of the trending conversation, but you had the insight that could change the conversation. They couldn't see the value in the truth you carried because they had been taught to value popularity over substance, the visible over the spiritual. In Luke 6:26, Jesus says, "Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you, for that is how their ancestors treated the false prophets." You were never meant to be a false prophet. You were meant to carry truth, the kind of truth that doesn't depend on crowd approval or trendy validation. Your calling was always bigger than the noise. They wanted validation from the majority, but they couldn't understand that divine truth doesn't need marketing. It reveals itself over time, whether people are ready for it or not. You weren't meant to entertain the masses. You were meant to awaken them. But the reality of awakening is that it rarely makes you popular at first because it forces people to confront what they've been avoiding. You weren't there to make them comfortable. You weren't there to appease them. You were there to speak the necessary truth, even if it wasn't welcomed with open arms. In Matthew 7:13-1-4, it says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. You walked the narrow road, the one that requires courage, honesty, and self-awareness, and it wasn't paved with popularity. Your message wasn't meant to comfort their comfort zones. It was meant to challenge their complacency. You didn't say what sounded nice. You said what was necessary, and that's why they resisted you. Have you ever wondered why truth can feel uncomfortable to those who are not ready for it? When you spoke your truth, they didn't reject it because it was wrong. They rejected it because it was right too soon. They couldn't digest a level of truth that required them to evolve, to change, to see the world in a completely new way. And instead of embracing the challenge, they ran from it. But what they didn't understand is that you were never meant to fit the algorithm of public approval. Your words weren't meant for clicks, they were meant for correction. And as much as people love trends, correction doesn't go viral until people finally feel the consequences of ignoring it. In 2 Timothy 4:3, it is written, "For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear." This is exactly what they did. They wanted what was easy, what felt good, and what was popular. But your truth wasn't designed to please them. It wasn't made to tickle their ears. It was made to transform them. And transformation isn't easy. It's often uncomfortable. Now that everything you warned them about is unfolding, they're starting to listen. They're realizing your weird ideas were actually warnings. Your unpopular perspective was preparation. They may have mocked you, but now they are seeing that you saw what was coming long before they did. Your words were not just predictions, they were divine insight. And now, the same people who dismissed you are searching for your wisdom because they can't deny the truth anymore. The wisdom you carried wasn't a passing trend. It wasn't some quick moment of brilliance that faded into the background. It was eternal. And as they finally absorb the lessons you've shared, They realized that they measured you by popularity, but heaven measured you by purpose. You were never meant to chase the approval of the masses. You were meant to bring about a shift in the consciousness of those who were ready to hear your truth. And now that truth is ringing louder than ever before. In Proverbs 2-6 it says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding." Your wisdom didn't come from trends. It came from divine insight, from a place far beyond the opinions of the crowd. You weren't chosen to entertain. You were chosen to enlighten, to awaken those who were ready to step into a higher state of being. Your wisdom isn't bound by time or trends. It is a timeless truth meant to outlast generations. While they measured your value by popularity, heaven was measuring your purpose, your impact, and the depth of your calling. Now, as the very wisdom they ignored becomes essential to their survival, they can't escape the truth they once dismissed. You were never meant to fit into their world. You were meant to shake it up, to challenge it, to bring about the kind of awakening that doesn't need to be marketed. Your truth was always bigger than the trends. It was divine, and divine truth never fades. It always finds its time, and that time is now. Number 9. Your brilliance was a threat to their collective comfort zone. You didn't just disrupt one person's ego. You rattled an entire system built on pretending. Small-minded people depend on sameness to survive. They draw safety from the familiar, even if it's false. The moment someone like you walks in with awareness, truth, and a higher standard, you automatically expose the imbalance in their world. Your presence alone became confrontation. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the energy shift? Not because you were loud or brash, but because your presence alone was a reflection of something they couldn't ignore. You weren't trying to prove anything. Your way of thinking, your excellence, your authenticity forced them to see how shallow their own logic had become. You didn't insult them, your excellence did. And that's the thing, isn't it? When you live with clarity and conviction, you don't need to argue your worth. Your existence itself becomes a challenge to the mediocrity around you. In Proverbs 4-7, it says, "The beginning of wisdom is this. Get wisdom, though it cost all you have, get understanding." You didn't come to their world asking for validation. You came equipped with wisdom, armed with understanding, a wisdom they weren't ready for. Mediocrity is a culture, and it thrives on complacency. It's built on unspoken agreements. Don't think too hard. Don't dream too big. Don't speak too boldly. Everyone plays along, creating a false peace that keeps things comfortable, keeps things small. But when you entered the scene, you broke those unspoken rules. You dared to be different, and in doing so, you shook their false sense of normal. They couldn't handle how naturally you did what they struggled to fake. And because they couldn't measure up to your standard, they united against you. Not because you were wrong, but because your truth revealed how much of their identity was performance. You were too much for them, too confident, too bold, too real. They couldn't handle your authenticity, so they called it arrogance. But it was never about you. It was about their fragile illusions being threatened. In 2 Corinthians 4-8, Paul writes, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair." Your brilliance was a challenge to their comfort zone, and in the discomfort, they saw their weaknesses, their insecurities, and their unwillingness to evolve. It's far easier to reject what challenges you than to face what it exposes about yourself. That's why entire groups joined in the gossip, the whispers, the rejection. It wasn't about you as a person, it was about protecting the fragile ecosystem they had built. You were too awake in a world that preferred to stay asleep. But here's the twist. What they saw as a disruption was actually divine recalibration. Your brilliance wasn't chaos, it was correction. You didn't come to destroy their comfort, you came to reveal its cost. And while they fought to preserve their mediocrity, you were busy mastering growth. You feared nothing, because you knew that greatness isn't loud or flashy, it's unsettling. You didn't need to conform to their expectations. You knew what you carried. And the moment they couldn't deny your brilliance, it became their greatest fear. The fact that you exposed how small their comfort zone truly was. In Matthew 10:34, Jesus said, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword." Your presence, like Jesus, was never about peace in the sense they expected. It was about awakening. It was about shaking the foundation of the comfortable, making them confront the reality they had been avoiding. What they thought was disruption was actually divine intervention, designed to make them see how they had been living in illusion. Have you ever felt that discomfort yourself? Have you ever wondered why being true to yourself has caused so much resistance around you? It's because your authenticity is a threat to the illusion they've built for themselves. They thought you would conform to their comfort zone, but instead you exposed it for what it truly was. A small, fragile world built on the illusion of safety, the illusion of stability. And when you stepped out into your own truth, you revealed that their comfort zone wasn't sustainable. It wasn't real. It was built on compromises they weren't ready to face. Now they see it. They see that your brilliance wasn't a threat, it was the key to their transformation. You didn't come to destroy their peace, you came to wake them up. But awakening rarely makes you popular at first. It confronts people's comfort zones. And now, as they look at you, they can't deny the power you hold, the clarity you carry, and the vision they wish they had the courage to embrace. In Proverbs 2-6, it says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding." Your wisdom didn't come from the world, and that's why it couldn't be understood by those who were still trapped in the world system. You didn't need their approval to be who you were. Your brilliance came from God, and it's divine, timeless, and unshakable. They thought they could keep you small, that they could shut you down, but you were never meant to stay small. You were meant to transform, to challenge, and to awaken. And now, as they witness your rise, they are forced to confront the fact that their comfort zone was always too small for the greatness you were destined to carry. Number 10. What they called overthinking was actually divine pattern recognition. They couldn't understand the way your mind worked because it didn't operate on the surface. Your thoughts moved through layers, connections, and invisible threads that most people never even noticed. They mocked the way you processed everything so deeply, acting like you were exhausting yourself with imaginary problems. But what they failed to see is that your depth wasn't dysfunction, it was discernment. You weren't stuck in your head. You were tuned into a higher level of awareness that demanded attention. Have you ever felt like you were seeing things that others couldn't? Not because you were overthinking, but because your mind was operating in a way that saw beyond the obvious. You noticed small shifts in people's tone, patterns in their timing, and inconsistencies in their energy. You saw what others ignored, the story behind the story. They laughed and told you to stop overthinking, but what they really meant was stop noticing. Your mind scared them because it connected dots they weren't ready to see, dots that threatened their carefully constructed illusions. You were never lost in thought. You were simply operating at a different frequency, one that didn't rely on surface-level observations. In Matthew 10:16, Jesus says, "I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves." Your ability to see through people's facades was never paranoia. It was divine wisdom guiding you. You weren't imagining things. You were seeing the truth behind the veil, decoding the motives behind actions that seemed innocent on the surface. You could sense when something didn't add up, when the energy didn't match the words. Your insight wasn't a flaw, it was a gift. People couldn't handle it though, could they? They wanted to believe you were imagining things, because if you weren't, it meant they were exposed. They called it paranoia because it was easier than admitting that you were right, that you were operating with a depth they couldn't understand. Your mind didn't work the way theirs did, and instead of appreciating your insight, they dismissed it as a flaw. But time has a way of revealing the truth, doesn't it? In Proverbs 3:5-6, it is written, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Your mind was guided by something higher than mere logic, something divine. You didn't rely on the world's way of seeing things. You trusted in a deeper wisdom, and that wisdom often revealed things that others weren't ready to hear. Now, those who dismissed your insights find themselves remembering. They remember the warnings you gave, the gut feelings you voiced, and the odd little details you pointed out that turned out to be spot on. What they once mocked, they now replay in disbelief. It's like everything you warned them about is now unfolding, and as they watch it happen, they can no longer deny that you were right. They thought you were just overthinking, but now they see that your clarity wasn't chaos, it was divine intelligence. Your brain wasn't erratic. It was connected to something bigger, something they couldn't see or understand at the time. Your mind was sharp, guided by revelation, not by random thought processes or anxious worrying. In James 1-5, it says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." Your wisdom wasn't your own, it was a gift, a spiritual download that they simply weren't attuned to. And while they labeled you as an overthinker, you were being guided. You were being directed by divine intelligence, and now that the truth has surfaced, they're left embarrassed. They misjudged you because they couldn't fathom the depth of the wisdom you carried. The label of overthinker no longer fits. It never did. You weren't overthinking, you were seeing things clearly. You weren't lost in thought. You were listening to your inner voice, the one that had access to a higher level of understanding. Your clarity felt heavy because it was rooted in divine truth. It didn't come from logical analysis alone. It came from spiritual insight, from a place of deep discernment that most people couldn't comprehend. That's why your clarity was so unsettling to them. It didn't fit into the neatly packaged world of surface-level logic and easy explanations. In Romans 11:33 it says, "Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out." The wisdom you carried wasn't meant to fit into their understanding. It was unsearchable, beyond what they could grasp with their limited minds. But now, as everything you predicted starts to unfold, they can no longer dismiss your brilliance. They can no longer ignore the depth of your insight, because now the evidence is undeniable. You weren't just right, you were ahead of them. You weren't just imagining things, you were tuned into divine wisdom, seeing patterns that most couldn't because they were looking only at the surface. Your mind didn't need to conform to their logic. It operated in divine alignment, seeing things others couldn't because their vision was clouded by the noise of the world. You were never overthinking. You were listening to God's guidance. Now, as they see the consequences of their dismissal, they will remember your words. They will remember what they called paranoia and realize it was divine clarity. Your wisdom didn't come from experience alone. It came from a place of deep spiritual connection, and now they can't ignore it. What once seemed crazy to them now seems like the only thing that makes sense. Number 11. Your exile was a stage for revelation, not rejection. What they saw as your punishment, your isolation, was never a punishment at all. It was preparation disguised as distance. They thought your silence meant defeat, that you had lost your relevance, but that period of isolation was the most productive season of your soul. You weren't just away, you were being upgraded. While they assumed you'd faded into obscurity, God was fine-tuning your spirit for revelation. Have you ever experienced a season where the world thought you had disappeared, only for you to realize you were evolving in ways they couldn't comprehend? Your time of exile, whether it was physical distance, emotional withdrawal, or spiritual separation, wasn't about losing the battle. It was about being prepared for the next phase of your divine purpose. The space they created by rejecting you became sacred ground for your transformation. The disconnection that seemed so harsh to them was actually your opportunity to recalibrate, to align yourself more deeply with divine wisdom. In Psalm 34:18, it says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Your exile, your moments of isolation, were not moments of abandonment. They were moments of divine closeness. In the silence, you were being reprogrammed. You were stripped of distractions, of external influences, of the noise that kept you from hearing God's voice clearly. Every unanswered call, every closed door, every lonely night was part of the formatting process, refining you to hold the higher voltage of divine wisdom. You weren't abandoned, you were being prepared. They didn't understand this, did they? The same people who laughed at your absence, who mocked your silence, had no idea that chosen ones don't vanish, they regenerate. What they thought was rejection was actually divine selection. God didn't hide you because you were unworthy. He hid you because revelation cannot grow in public soil. Some lessons are too sacred for the crowd. They can only be received in silence. In Matthew 6:6, Jesus says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Your silence, your isolation was your secret room, where you were being prepared for something far greater than they could imagine. It was in this stillness that you learned to sit with God in the dark until light began to speak through you. When you re-emerged, you didn't come back with a new theory or a learned ideology. You came back with a kind of clarity that didn't sound learned, it sounded lived. Your wisdom wasn't just book knowledge or mentorship, it was the wisdom born of survival, of surrender, of the quiet moments with God, where you found out who you truly were. And when you spoke, the world could feel it. Your words carried weight, your presence felt charged with something divine. They couldn't explain it, but they could sense that something supernatural had happened while you were gone. What they couldn't intellectualize was the power you had acquired. In Isaiah 40:31, it says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Your exile wasn't a time of weakness, it was a time of renewal. Your strength was being built in the quiet moments, in the stillness, in the absence of the world's validation. You soared like an eagle in the silence, and now you are ready to fly higher than ever before. They thought rejection would break you, but it became the perfect hiding place for your rebirth. You were never behind, you were being concealed until your frequency was too refined to be misunderstood. Your exile wasn't the end of your story, it was the divine pause before revelation. And when you returned, you didn't come back to prove them wrong. You came back carrying something they can't intellectualize. You came back with wisdom that wasn't taught. It was downloaded directly from the source, straight from the heart of God. In 1 Corinthians 2-9, it is written, "However, as it is written, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love Him." Your exile was the space where God was preparing things beyond their comprehension. What they saw as your downfall was your ascension, your elevation to a level of understanding that could only be attained in solitude. And now that you're back, you're not just back as you were, you're back as something new, refined, and charged with divine purpose. They can no longer dismiss your wisdom, your clarity, or your vision. You were hidden for a season, but the time has come for your revelation. The things you've learned in your solitude, the lessons only God could teach you in the quiet, are now your gift to the world. And while they ignored you, dismissed you, or laughed at you, now they are searching for the very wisdom they rejected. You are no longer the person they thought you were. You have been hidden, prepared, and revealed, and nothing they do or say can diminish the power of what you carry. Your exile wasn't punishment, it was preparation, a sacred process that allowed you to step into your true divine purpose. And now, the world will see the beauty, the power, and the wisdom you were always meant to share. Number 12. Their apologies are not from conviction, but from exposure. Their apologies came late, not because their hearts evolved, but because the truth could no longer be hidden. When you were unseen, your genius was a joke, a punchline to their ignorance. But the moment the world began to recognize you, those same people scrambled to rewrite history. Suddenly, the ones who mocked you are now the ones who praise you. The ones who dismissed you are now telling stories of how they always knew you'd make it. But beneath those smiles is the sour taste of exposure. Have you ever noticed that the same people who once ridiculed you now act like they were always on your side? It's almost as if they believe they can rewrite history to fit their new narrative. But you can see through it, can't you? You know that their apologies are not born from true remorse, but from the harsh light of truth that now shines on them. Their apologies sound polished, but you can hear the hollowness in their tone. It's not sorrow, it's strategy. Because genuine remorse would have shown itself in changed behavior, but their actions haven't changed, only the audience has. In James 3:16, it says, "For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice." Their apologies were never about the hurt they caused you, but about their need to regain control of the narrative. They can't stand that your light revealed just how blind they were. They don't regret mistreating you. They regret that now others can see it too. Their shame didn't come from true revelation. It came from the fear of reputation damage. It's a type of guilt that only appears when public opinion shifts and hypocrisy becomes undeniable. It's almost laughable, isn't it? The very people who swore you were delusional, the ones who called you crazy or dismissed you as irrelevant, are now trying to curate ways to be connected to your success. They are so proud of you now, claiming they were always in your corner, as if they hadn't spent years telling you that your dreams were unrealistic. But you see through it, don't you? You see that it's not humility, it's damage control. It's self-preservation, a strategy to maintain their relevance in a world where you no longer need their validation. And that's the twisted brilliance of divine justice. It exposes hearts without you ever needing to lift a finger in revenge. You didn't have to announce your worth, the results did. In Romans 12:19 it says, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge. I will repay,' says the Lord." You didn't need to fight for your vindication. God made sure the truth was revealed, and in that revelation they were forced to see themselves for what they truly were. Your growth became a mirror, and now they can't unsee their own reflection. Your light exposed their darkness, and they can't deny it any longer. The truth is, they always knew you were different. They always knew there was something about you that couldn't be easily understood, something they didn't have the courage to acknowledge when everyone else chose to doubt you. You were too much for them, too bold, too authentic, too real. And in a world where most people settle for surface-level validation, your deep truth was a threat. But now that your light is undeniable, they're forced to face what they suppressed all along. They mistook your holiness for arrogance and your authenticity for rebellion. Now, the same ones who rejected you are the ones searching for your wisdom, asking for your insights, and claiming they always knew you'd be successful. Their apologies are not born from conviction, they are born from the exposure of the truth they tried to ignore for so long. And you know what? That's fine, because you never needed their validation to begin with. You were built in silence, vindicated in truth, and elevated without their permission. Let them perform repentance while you perform your purpose. Time has already rendered its verdict, and the truth of your journey is poetic. What they refuse to acknowledge privately, life has made them bow to publicly. The truth has always been on your side, and now it's too loud for anyone to ignore. In Proverbs 4:18, it says, "The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day." Your path was always meant to shine, and while they tried to put out your light, all they did was fuel its brilliance. They thought your brilliance was temporary, but now they see that it's eternal. Your light doesn't fade with their apologies or regrets. It only grows stronger, more undeniable, and more powerful. And now, as they try to recover from the shame of their own actions, you stand tall, vindicated, and illuminated by divine purpose. Number 13. You became the proof. Genius is not always recognized, it's revealed in time. You became the living proof that genius doesn't need applause to exist. It simply waits for time to catch up. When they couldn't categorize you, they called you crazy. When they couldn't understand you, they called you lost. But the truth is, you were never behind, you were ahead. Your silence wasn't a sign of defeat, it was incubation. While they were busy chasing attention, you were quietly cultivating depth. And that's the thing about divine timing. It hides brilliance until the world is humble enough to receive it. Do you remember those moments when others thought you were wasting your time? When they didn't understand your quiet determination and brushed you off as someone who would never amount to anything? Your silence was not surrender, it was preparation. While others were caught up in the noise of external validation, you were building something deeper, something that couldn't be measured by surface standards. You didn't need to convince anyone you were chosen. Time did that for you. What they mocked as failure was really the forming of something they couldn't fathom: your genius. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, it says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end." Your journey wasn't random, it was perfectly orchestrated by the divine timing of the universe. Your rise wasn't a mistake, it was a divine design. And now, as the truth unfolds, it's undeniable. The same voices that once dismissed you are now echoing your thoughts, using your language, and quoting your essence. They don't even realize they sound like you. Your influence has run so deep that the very principles they once mocked are now woven into their own narratives. Have you ever experienced that moment when you felt like an outsider, ignored, or belittled, only to realize that your truth was always stronger than their rejection? They laughed at your ideas, and now they mimic them. They dismissed your principles, and now they package them as wisdom. The irony is divine. The person they once overlooked, the nobody they thought you were, has now become the blueprint they depend on for relevance. In Proverbs 16:9, it says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Your course was mapped out in silence. While they couldn't see your path, God was preparing you for the moment when everything would align. They never realized the power of your quiet evolution. They needed your voice, but they couldn't see it while it was still taking form. Now, they are left in awe and regret, realizing that what they dismissed was never about arrogance, it was about foresight. You were never meant to announce that you were right. You didn't need to prove yourself because your truth was always self-evident. All you had to do was endure. You stood firm in your journey, no applause, no recognition, just faith that time would catch up with the revelation that was brewing within you. And now, as your truth unfolds publicly, they're realizing that what they once rejected was never a matter of arrogance, it was foresight. In Habakkuk 2-3, it says, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Your revelation came at the appointed time, right when it needed to. And now, the whole town stands in quiet embarrassment, watching the prophecy they ignored become the proof they can no longer deny. Your brilliance was never about fitting into their expectations. It was always about waiting for the right moment when the world was ready for the depth of your vision. You were never behind. You were always ahead. Your journey was not a race against others. It was about alignment with divine timing. And now, everyone who once doubted you is left to witness the evidence of what they tried to dismiss. The truth always has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? It may not come with immediate applause or recognition, but when the world is ready for it, it shines brighter than ever before. And now, as you stand in your truth, You are the living proof that genius doesn't need applause to exist. It just needs time to catch up. Number 14. Their shame is the sound of divine reversal. Their shame isn't random, it's the echo of divine justice catching up with arrogance. The same people who once mocked your steps are now tiptoeing around your name. What they dismissed in public, they now secretly study in private. That's how divine reversal operates. It doesn't just lift you, it humbles those who laughed while you were still being built. Their laughter once filled the air, but now it's their silence that testifies. The joke turned into judgment, and the rumor became reverence. Isn't it poetic how life works like that? You didn't have to argue, prove, or retaliate. Time became your courtroom, and truth became your witness. Divine reversal is poetic like that. It takes mockery and molds it into manifestation. Every insult they threw at you became a seed for your recognition. Every attempt to bury you became the soil for your growth. They thought your downfall would confirm their superiority, but what they didn't understand was that your rise became the sermon they never wanted to hear. Now, when they look at you, they're not laughing anymore. They are learning. The same mouths that cursed you are now praying to be connected to you. It's not coincidence, it's correction. Heaven doesn't expose people with lightning bolts. He exposes them through outcomes. That's why their shame stings so deeply. It's not punishment, it's realization. They are being forced to face the truth that they ignored, that what they laughed at was actually sacred. What they mocked was prophetic. What they abandoned was chosen. And now they have to live with the uncomfortable awareness that they mishandled what heaven had marked. Their shame is the sound of divine reversal. It's the quiet hum of heaven restoring balance without violence. It's not about revenge, it's about revelation. You didn't need to make them see the truth. Life did it for you. And now, every success you experience plays like a divine announcement that says, the proof has arrived. But here's the crucial thing, not for their destruction, but for your vindication. Sometimes the most powerful judgment isn't wrath. It's watching the tables turn so gracefully that even your enemies have no choice but to clap. The journey of a chosen one is never ordinary. It's filled with moments where the world misunderstands, mocks, and even attempts to destroy what it cannot comprehend. But what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary is not how loudly one fights back, but how profoundly one endures, observes, and evolves in silence. Every insult you endured, every person who doubted you, every season where you were overlooked or excluded, all of it was part of a divine process, shaping you into someone the world could no longer ignore. Your brilliance wasn't accidental, your insight wasn't borrowed, and your rise wasn't a fluke. Time revealed what they failed to see. That true genius doesn't need applause, popularity, or permission. It only needs patience, clarity, and resilience. Those who once ridiculed you now replay your words, mimic your vision, and silently recognize what they refused to acknowledge before. Their shame, their apologies, their quiet admiration, it's all a reflection of your growth, your wisdom, and your unshakable alignment with destiny. You weren't rejected, you were refined. You weren't overlooked. You were being prepared for something far greater than the limited perception of those around you. In 1 Peter 5:10, it says, "And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast." You were never meant to remain stagnant. Your truth, your clarity, and your depth of understanding aren't just gifts to yourself. They are proofs to the world that what they dismissed as impossible, inconvenient, or too much was actually divine all along. And now, as the world catches up, the same voices that once questioned your worth are the ones echoing your thoughts. The same people who laughed at your ideas are now standing in quiet awe, forced to recognize that the person they underestimated was the one carrying the revelation they needed. That's the power of divine timing. Your life itself becomes the evidence, your survival the statement, and your brilliance the benchmark. In Psalm 75:7, it says, "But it is God who judges. He brings one down, he exalts another." Your rise wasn't an accident. It wasn't for their entertainment or approval. It was ordained by divine justice, and now the truth is undeniable. So stand in that truth unapologetically. Know that every delay, every doubt, and every season of silence was crafting the masterpiece that is you. Your story isn't just about proving them wrong, it's about awakening them to the reality they once ignored. The proof has arrived, and it will continue to speak louder than anything they could ever say. As we reflect on your journey, it's clear that your story is not just one of personal triumph, but a profound testimony of divine timing and spiritual revelation. You've been misunderstood, mocked, and overlooked at times, but through it all, your strength, your purpose, and your brilliance have never wavered. You were never behind. You were always ahead, and now, as time has unfolded, the world is finally beginning to see the truth they couldn't comprehend before. Divine justice, though quiet and often subtle, has a way of exposing those who once doubted, laughed, or dismissed you. It doesn't come with wrath or vengeance, it comes with revelation. The shame they now feel is not punishment, it's simply the truth catching up with them, forcing them to face what they ignored, mocked, or misunderstood. You didn't have to prove yourself. Time did that for you. And now, those who once called your ideas crazy are the ones echoing your thoughts and quoting your wisdom, even if they don't realize it. Your exile, the silence, and the waiting periods were not signs of defeat. They were the sacred spaces where your spirit was refined and prepared. As you endured those moments of isolation, you were not just surviving, you were evolving. God's timing is never off, and your moment has arrived because you were being shaped into something far greater than those around you could ever understand. What they mocked now manifests as wisdom, power, and clarity that cannot be denied. The power of divine timing is incredible, isn't it? It doesn't matter if the world was slow to recognize your brilliance. It only matters that your truth was always destined to rise. What they didn't understand then, they're beginning to see now. Your light was never meant to be dimmed. You are not just a survivor of mockery or doubt. You are a living testimony of divine reversal. You've turned every insult, every rejection, and every delay into the fertile ground that nourished your growth. And now, they have no choice but to witness the power of your presence. I invite you to take a moment and reflect on the profound journey you've been on. Can you see how far you've come? How the whispers of doubt from others have only strengthened your resolve and sharpened your purpose. You are the evidence that divine timing is real, and that greatness is not about fitting into others' expectations, but about trusting the process that God has designed for you. Your journey has proven that genius does not need validation from the world. It simply needs time to be recognized, and your time is now. If this message has resonated with you, I encourage you to like, share, and comment below. Let us know how this message has spoken to your heart. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning of the journey. We are all walking this path together, and by sharing our experiences, we can continue to grow and uplift each other. If you feel moved, consider supporting the channel with a super thanks. Whether or not you choose to contribute, I want to express my deepest gratitude for your presence, your support, and your commitment to this journey. May you walk in the fullness of your purpose, knowing that you are divinely guided and that your light will always shine, no matter how long it takes for others to see it. May your steps be firm, your heart be peaceful, and your path be illuminated by divine wisdom. You are chosen, and your time has come. Blessings to you, now and always.